I have been clinically depressed since I was 19. I was first diagnosed when I was 19, 20. But now that I know more about what mental health problems are and what depression actually is, I've probably been depressed since I was about 14 or 15.
I think probably the reason that I suffered so much from depression at a young age was most likely isolation, really, and feeling that I didn't have any connection with the outside world, and actually that I didn't really have a part in the world to play.
I mean, I tried to kill myself when I was 16 and very nearly did over the head of this. And a world that makes you feel that way because of your sexuality, it's not a world that's working.
I think when we done an analysis to look at which communities suffer the greatest inequalities, LGBT community come up as one of those priorities. And in the past, they've just been as part of the wider community. But when you start to look at the stats in terms of, particularly around mental health, you do identify serious issues that have to be addressed.
Young LGBT people are 3 times more likely to attempt suicide, 2.5 times more likely to self-harm, and 5 times more likely to be medicated for depression than their heterosexual peers.
The problem for LGBT people in this country is shocking. As a psychotherapist, I am actually appalled and shocked at the level of distress that we are prepared to tolerate.
I struggled sort of with depression and self-harm and issues like that when I was going through, like, realising that I was gay.
At one stage I would have sort of way not have been proud, and I've actually done harm to myself because of my sexuality.
And what does it do to you to hear the words faggot, poof, queer, blah, 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 blah? It's extremely hurtful. It's probably the reason I didn't come out when I was 16 and started to realise my sexuality.
Whenever people shout at you and call you names and stuff, it does sink in after a while.
And in the west of the city where I live, it's very rough, and you're called a queer, you're called this, that and the other.
I changed from being angry at myself and hating myself to being very angry at the world.
The fault does not lie with the individual young person, it's the amount of stress that they're under.
There's not something intrinsic to me being a lesbian, gay, bisexual or transgender person that predisposes me to having mental health illness or suicide or self-harm, but rather that we live in a society that reflects the homophobic values and that is a heterosexist society. And by heterosexism I mean the positioning of heterosexuality as the accepted and superior norm, and therefore the resulting lack of visibility of people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual and or transgender, and a lack of awareness of those specific needs.
So school was really, really unpleasant from primary school right up, and I'm talking up till upper sixth, I was 17, so you're probably 14 odd years of school life. Every day, I don't really remember a day that I wasn't bullied in some form. Fortunately, if you can call it that, it was never physical, it was always verbal. And I don't know if I lived in a little bubble or if I was green or a bit wet behind the ears, but I didn't even really know what homosexuality or gay even was.
I had no idea what to do with it, because you don't know, who to check in with. Is this okay? Is this okay that I feel like this? I don't see myself reflected anywhere. I don't know where to go for advice. I don't know sort of really what to do about it. And it's that sort of time period where you're waiting to accept yourself that I found really, really difficult to sort of deal with as a teenager.
My biggest presumption about coming out was that it would make everything easier. There would be this like almost explosion that would go off, and all of a sudden my life would take a new course and jet off and everything would be successful and rosy. It certainly wasn't. Things got a lot harder. I suffered depression, had a bit of a breakdown.
It bothered me, yes, but it was more how it would affect everyone else, if you know what I mean. I was more concerned about everyone else and more concerned about my family and my parents.
On some level, there will be some sort of internalized shame, known as internalized homophobia, and it's a natural reaction to hiding all of who you are. Not being able to be authentic, not being able to completely be free. So there's some part that's always hidden, and that repression causes a hypersensitivity.
I went out a few times just dressed as a guy, no makeup, no nothing on, and I found myself sort of standing at the back of the crowd and feeling very uncomfortable and very awkward. And I thought, you know, I sort of stood and I would be looking around me and going, if I had my wig on, if I had my makeup on, if I was here as female, I wouldn't be standing in this corner here just looking around me feeling awkward. I would be out there, I'd be talking to people, I'd be chatting with my friends, I'd be having a laugh.
Because I spent so long in the closet, the first 24 years of my life, and trying to live up to this image of what people wanted me to be or expected me to be, I think that makes you very paranoid. So it does. You're constantly questioning, do they know?
We're saying to our children when they're at primary school or nursery school, who kissed your teeth out? The presumption of heterosexuality, and that's ingrained throughout our culture, and that's exacerbated throughout life. So our peer groups, our schools, our education, the expectations from our family, all reinforce those heterosexist norms. So the expectation is you are heterosexual. If you deviate from that, it may be tolerated or accepted, but it's not as good as being heterosexual, and therefore that's heterosexism in practice.
And if we fit into what is the norm, which is heterosexuality, is probably a lot of young people don't really notice, and they get a lot of support from their family around their growing sexuality. For young LGBT people, they become aware that they're different.
It's the impact of that, the impact of homophobia, the fear of homophobia, the impact on people, and then therefore present in terms of health inequalities and poorer mental health outcomes than our heterosexual peers.